Violent retribution against notorious criminals in prison. There are many people living in prisons and detention centers around the world. Fifilov's cellmate was a 25-year-old man named Nikolai Karpenko. Karpenko became increasingly disturbed by the maniac's graphic stories about what he had done to his victims. The final straw came when Fifilov suggested that Karpenko should strangle his wife if she was unfaithful. When the killer began describing in detail how he himself would do it, Karpenko lost control. On August 30th, 1988, he strangled the maniac in the cell and later received an additional 10-year sentence for the murder. Because of the incident, several detention center officials and employees were dismissed from their jobs. Fisherman Jose Pereira turned the small island, where he lived with his family, into a brothel and forced his own daughter and 2 granddaughters into sexual slavery. Over 12 years, his 28-year-old daughter gave birth to 7 children fathered by the Brazilian pedophile. The children were malnourished and barely able to speak. Pereira was eventually imprisoned in Panera prison. The other inmates, thieves, robbers, and gang members, refused to share the prison with someone they considered such a disgusting betrayer of family values. The administration ignored their verbal protests. However, the situation escalated when prisoners learned that Pereira had been allowed to receive an inflatable doll to satisfy his sexual desires. The inmates could no longer tolerate it. On February 7, 2011, prisoners restrained the guards so they would not interfere and stormed the separate block where rapists and pedophiles were being held. 4 offenders were beheaded, while 2 others were stabbed to death with sharpened weapons made from prison bars. Jose Pereira was among those beheaded. Before he died, the attackers reportedly subjected him to brutal torture. A highly unusual incident took place in Bolivia. In the high-security prison of Santa Cruz, a criminal named Raul Almeida was serving time for assaulting 11 elderly women and 32 girls. The other inmates had largely ignored his crimes until a famous Bolivian boxing champion, Jennifer Vinu, revealed on social media that she herself had been assaulted by a man named Raul when she was 5 years old. She publicly promised that she would personally castrate him after his release, even if it cost her own freedom. Prisoners across Bolivia decided to take revenge on her behalf and began targeting pedophiles named Raul. Almeida became terrified and secretly asked prison officials to hide him, admitting that he was indeed the man who had assaulted Jennifer years earlier. Word spread among the inmates. Soon afterward, Raul Almeida was found dead and mutilated in his prison cell. British serial killer Peter Sutcliffe, known as the Yorkshire Ripper, targeted prostitutes and murdered 13 women. He claimed he was fighting immorality in society, although he also committed disturbing acts against the bodies of his victims. In prison, Sutcliffe was deeply hated and constantly feared attacks from other inmates. He survived 3 major assaults that nearly killed him. On January 10, 1983, while imprisoned at Parkhurst Prison on the Isle of Wight, career criminal James Costello attacked Sutcliffe with a broken glass cup and slashed his face. Guards managed to save him. Sutcliffe's facial muscles were badly damaged, and he later demanded cosmetic surgery, though prison doctors only stitched the wounds. Later, in Broadmoor Hospital, another inmate named Paul Wilson attempted to strangle Sutcliffe with a headphone wire, but guards intervened after hearing Sutcliffe screaming for help. Despite his crimes, Sutcliffe received large numbers of letters from women outside prison. More than 30 women reportedly proposed marriage to him, and many requested permission to visit him. On March 10, 1997, inmate Johann K. took advantage of a moment when Sutcliffe's cell was opened so he could receive writing materials. Sutcliffe was busy writing a letter to one of his admirers when K rushed into the cell, grabbed a ballpoint pen, and repeatedly stabbed him in the eyes with its metal tip. Prison staff later found Sutcliffe unconscious and bleeding heavily on the floor. He survived, but permanently lost sight in his left eye. After that attack, security around him was significantly increased, and he began using his mother's surname, Cohen, for protection. Johann K. later admitted that he had wanted to kill Sutcliffe not because he hated serial killers, but because he hoped it would increase his reputation among other prisoners. That is all. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.